So as we conclude our third Disney Plus show, I thought it would be fun to take a closer look at one of my favorite of the three, Loki. Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Burns Reviews, and today we are talking about the series Loki on Disney Plus. It just wrapped up its first season, it just got renewed for a second season. Loki is also going to be in Doctor Strange Part 2, Multiverse of Madness. Can't wait for that, but today we are breaking down the 6 episodes that came out on Disney Plus over the summer, and of course, lots of spoilers ahead, so if you haven't seen the show Loki, be sure to go check it out and come back so we can talk about it. Also, before we begin, this list is just my opinion. It is completely subjective. It is going to differ from what you think, so just keep that in mind. Make sure the comments aren't belligerent, because obviously this is not the ultimate list, the definitive list. It's just my opinion, and I would love to know what you thought of Loki. How would you rank these 6 episodes? Be sure to put it in the comments down below so we could talk about it later. Without any further ado, let's break it down. The first season on Disney Plus, Loki. Coming in at number 6 is episode 2, The Variant. Episode 2 is in no way bad, but definitely slows down after the show's near perfect premiere. We meet Sylvie, aka Lady Loki, for the first time, as well as learn the fact that she has been hiding within the apocalypses to avoid detection. This isn't my favorite episode by any measure. I mean, yeah, it is cool to see Loki go through Pompeii with Morbius, and it's a lot of fun seeing the two now working together in a buddy adventure story, but largely it feels like a bottle episode, to get us to episode 3. The scene in the tent where Loki tries to fool everyone felt kind of boring to me. The entire series takes place in gorgeous landscapes, yet here we are subjected to a dark tent where Loki is chewing his way through the runtime to fool the TVA, and it doesn't even work. Yes, it is pretty cool when we get to the supermarket, and there's almost a vibe similar to a horror movie, but overall it pales in comparison to the episodes that are to come. I give this episode 5.5 out of 10. Coming in at number 5 is the episode finale, episode 6, For All Time Always. So, hot take, I wasn't actually a big fan of the Loki finale. Not that I didn't enjoy it for what it was, it's just that this episode felt pretty hollow to me. And in this one, we just meet Kang, or as he goes by, the one who remains, he who remains, which is cool, but not really. Meanwhile, Morbius returns to the TVA after explaining that he was going to burn it to the ground, only to get his ass kicked while Renslayer walks out the door, which kinda felt a little anticlimactic. Oh, and we get the post-credits scene where we see Kang instead of the Timekeepers. Just cool, I guess. Not for nothing, I know they're trying to give us a hard intro into the multiverse, but I'd rather see Loki take on Season 2 with the Morbius that we know instead of a variant Mobius. I mean, is Season 3 just going to be a rehash where Loki has to spend 3 episodes convincing this new Mobius that he is who he is? I mean, Jesus, that's really redundant. To me, this is definitely an interesting episode, and Jonathan Majors turns in a fantastic performance as our new Kang, but the entire episode is just exposition. It's just 3 people sitting at a table explaining what we're going to be getting in future installments in the MCU, and to me, that just felt kind of hollow. It felt like a giant commercial. I felt like this was just one of those, and don't forget to come back now. It didn't have any resonance of a final chapter in a story in a book or a movie or a TV show. It just felt like, here's a teaser, and we're going to do it for a full hour. Not something you really expect in a finale. Coming in at number 4 is episode 3, Lamentus. Episode 3 begins with a slow start when we see Sylvie not in a flashback revolving around her, but inside the inner workings of one of her enchantments. From there, we see where Loki ends up when he follows Sylvie through the magic door, a door that could have led to literally anywhere. Our imaginations all ran wild. We all thought, hey, are we gonna see where Sylvie came from, her home, her secret evil headquarters on a really cool looking planet? No, we're back at the TVA, where Morbius was trying to get Loki to go in the first place, and it kinda feels kinda hollow when you watch episode 2 and 3 back to back. You're like, wait a second, we were trying to get away from the TVA, and he actually got back to the TVA faster than Mobius did. The rest of the episode is pretty great though, considering a few scenes later we do get to see some remarkable places as our 2 Lokis are trapped on a timeline that will shortly end in an apocalypse with no means of escaping. There's a bit of walking around, and the big cliffhanger is a bit weak in my opinion. However, the train scene is where the episode really shines. Not only do we get a very full Loki singing like he's in an old Irish pub, but we get to peel back a few more layers on both Loki and Sylvie when they reminisce about their past, and Loki does his monologue about how love is a dagger. A scene that could be argued that is the main thesis of who Loki really is underneath all that false ego. It's just good stuff, and because of that, I'm giving this episode a 7 out of 10.
Another!
Up next, we have Episode 1, Glorious Purpose. This is by far one of my favorite episodes in the series. As the prologue to kick off the series, Glorious Purpose does a fantastic job of setting the stage of things to come. We get an explanation on what the TVA is, and at the same time, the episode builds up quite a bit of intrigue when we learn about the Time Lords who are shrouded in mystery. Owen Wilson is superb as Mobius, a character that brings a lot of levity and heart to a show that is knee-deep in characters that are either narcissistic or overly stoic. We have a scene where we find out Loki was D.B. Cooper, which is a bit of fun, but most importantly we get a fantastic scene with Hiddleston where he realizes the error of his ways when he sees what will happen to him in the future if he continues being the bad guy. It's a touching scene and easily the best performance from Hiddleston in the entire series, which is why I give this episode an 8 out of 10. Next up at number 2, we have Episode 4, The Nexus Event. Episode 4 starts with a bit of backstory for Sylvie, in which we learn that she was actually plucked from her own timeline when she was just an innocent child. This is the scene that I was looking for back in Episode 3, but we got this crap instead. And yeah, this opening is awesome. We find out for sure that the TVA are definitely the bad guys, and Renslayer is not what she appears. What I like most about this episode is that Mobius finally stops acting like a corporate drone and goes out to do the right thing while also trying to keep everything together at the TVA. It's primarily his big episode within the series, and it's great. And sure, the bad memory prison again feels a little bit like filler, but it's amusing nonetheless. It's fun seeing Sif again, but considering the fact that we never see her in the finale or in any other scene for that matter, it kinda makes it feel like an empty gesture. Hopefully we see more of her character in Season 2. We also find out that the Timekeepers are nothing more than androids and basically serve as a Wizard of Oz reference. And we get a very mediocre fight scene, which is laughably bad, but we also do get a lot of good stuff sprinkled throughout. Despite what the episode doesn't offer in terms of plot, the episode more than makes up for it with some decent acting. I loved when B-15 said,
I looked happy.
And of course, concluding the Mobius-centric episode, we get one of my favorite scenes when Mobius gets caught betraying the TVA, but tries to talk his way out of it. This scene could have been a quick nothing scene, but instead, we stew in it. It feels like something out of The Sopranos or an old western where the character knows that he's going to die, but he still valiantly tries to course correct before he finally just says, the hell with it. I'm going out, I'm gonna go out standing on my own 2 feet, and I'm gonna say what I want to say before my immediate demise. It's the biggest highlight that Owen Wilson has on the show, and it's a scene that I like to revisit maybe on YouTube or on Disney Plus after the show is over. It's just a good scene. It kind of reminds me of a scene from the movie True Romance, where a character is in a similar situation, and it is a scene that I like to go back to long after the credits have rolled. Speaking of which, the post-credits scene is by far the coolest looking one ever. I mean, come on. Boss Logic turned it into an old school rap album from the 90s, and I gotta say, it looks really damn cool. Fantastic cliffhanger, even if it does deflate the earlier scene in which Loki was pruned. I give this episode 8.5 out of 10.
You can be whatever you want to be, even someone good. I mean, just in case anyone ever told you different.
And finally, at number 1 is Episode 5, Journey into Mystery. Oh my god, this episode is just fun. After several episodes that were drenched in paranoia and exposition, we have finally arrived at the episode where the training wheels can come off and we can just enjoy the ride. It's like a board game where you finally get a grasp on all the rules and you can start having fun with it. No more the characters trying to decide which team they are going to play for. We enter the void and we meet variant Lokis who are all fantastic. They even have Throg in there, played by Chris Hemsworth himself. My favorite, obviously, will be classic Loki, who has one of the coolest scenes ever. I mean, come on, if that's not some badass payoff, I don't know what is. Seriously, this makes up for that really bland tent scene that I was talking about earlier. We also get Mobius and Sylvia working together, which is kind of cool. And we finally meet President Loki, which, well, yeah, is a little bit of a bait and switch from all the trailers that we got months ago, but overall, the episode just rules. And if all that cool Easter egg stuff doesn't do it for you, if this weird blanket scene doesn't do it for you, if this glorious Richard E. Grant scene doesn't do it for you, if the mysterious castle in the clouds doesn't do it for you, well, how about this?
Well, I guess that's everything.
Thanks.
Thank you. In about 30 years?
I hope so.
That's what I think of when I watch this scene. This scene just slaps. Outside of this season being about primarily Loki, it's about the friendship he has with Mobius. We open with this. And we end with that. Everything has come full circle. The journey is now over in so many ways, and it's time to part ways.
I don't ever say a final goodbye. I always just say I'll see you down the road.
For me, this is where the season should have ended. This episode. We get our big action set piece, the dust has settled, and the character arcs have completed from which they have started in episode 1. Loki has selflessly thrown himself in harm's way just so that Sylvie can survive. Mobius has stopped drinking the Kool-Aid and realized Loki was right, and Sylvie got to go where she wanted, while also softening around the edges.
You're my favorite.
I personally would have left what happens next for season 2. Not because I like massive cliffhangers, but because the episode is entirely just a setup for season 2. A season I didn't even know I was getting until I checked the internet moments after the episode ended. It all feels just a little bit too much like setup for MCU movies. I know people like seeing Kang, and Jonathan Majors plays him really well. I did enjoy his character. It just felt a little bit out of place within the story that I was telling. I honestly would have preferred if the man behind the curtain was Renslayer, or perhaps even a character we saw earlier in the series, but this just comes out of left field and does what earlier episodes did, by dropping a lot of exposition on us. It felt tedious. The fight with Loki and Sylvie felt empty, and the big twist, honestly, reminded me of the end of Planet of the Apes when Marky Mark goes home to find Abe Lincoln, and it's just contrived. And it had really no real connection to the previous episodes. Not to mention, much like The Wizard of Oz, when Glinda could have taken Dorothy home in the beginning, you have to wonder why he who was left bothered to have them go through all this in the first place. I mean, he could have easily just had the TVA or Miss Minutes or anybody bring these two right here in the beginning of the show, and it kind of just weakens the strength of the entire show when you start to think about it. Kang is supposed to be our new, scary antagonist, and instead, I already feel like his plans are pretty dumb.
No, you can't get to the end until you've been changed by the journey.
Yeah, I know he says that, but just because he said that doesn't mean it's any less idiotic. Don't get me wrong, I enjoyed it, but I literally felt like I just finished watching season 1, and then I started episode 1 of season 2, and then like the power went out, my TV died, and I had no Wi-Fi, and I could not finish watching season 2. In a lot of ways, it was frustrating and kind of hollow. I'm sure we won't get another season for about 2 years, and at that point, I'm not sure if I'm really going to care that much. In closing, I thought Loki was fantastic, and may possibly be my favorite show of the MCU Disney Plus shows. I just wish it had a better finale. Not everything has to be commercial for the next movie. And perhaps I would have felt different if I didn't already know that the Multiverse of Madness was coming down the pipeline. If Loki was a show that introduced us to that idea, maybe I would be more excited. But to me, it just felt like I was walking through the motions, which is unfortunate because I really did enjoy the show. As a whole, I would give it a 9 out of 10 as a whole. Tom Hiddleston, Owen Wilson, and Sophia DiMartino are all great in the roles that they play, and I hope to see more of them as well as the other Loki variants in upcoming shows. But first we have to sit through Shang-Chi and Eternals, neither of which have yet to look all that impressive. But who knows, the MCU hasn't really disappointed yet, movie-wise. So maybe they'll be great. Time will tell. Anyway, like I said guys, this is just my list and it's completely subjective. You may have your own ranking and I'd love to hear about it down in the comments down below. But until next time guys, I've been John. I have another video right here for the movie Pig starring Nicolas Cage. I have End and Explain videos over here if you want to go deep into an analysis type of video, and you can check out my Loki video for episode 1 where I did a reaction for that as well. Until next time, guys, thank you so much for watching. I have been John here on Burns Reviews. You just got burned, and we will see you next time.